difference. So I'd like to talk about today role-based and personalized content. We'll talk about the business case for that, why we care about that. We'll show a bit of a case study, and we'll dive into a discussion. So a little bit about Zoomin. Zoomin was founded in 2007. Our main goal is really to help you and your organization deliver your most updated and personalized content so that your customers can find the answers that they're looking for. And that's whether it be in a documentation portal, but more and more companies like you all are expecting that your content is going to be available in many more places, wherever your customers are going, wherever your support people are going, wherever your prospects are going, whether that be your support site or your community site or actually inside your product. So that's really where we're focused and really helping you get your content, all this great investment in content that you've been making and really getting that out there to your customers and prospects. Here's some of our customers, and we'll be showing a couple of as part of the case study, I'll be showing, highlighting maybe a couple of these as we go forward. So before we get started with the personalization part, we'll do a little pitch for you guys, a little pitch for all the work that you're doing on your technical content. So all the work that you're doing on your technical product content, it's a hidden asset. Okay, it's hidden in a lot of different ways. One reason it's hidden is because very often people complain they can't find our content, which is we'll be addressing that today as well. Another reason why it's hidden is because a lot of people in our organization don't understand the value of the content that we have. So let's give a little pitch to ourselves about the value of your content, which helps us to pitch ourselves up through our organization. So number one, our technical content that you guys are creating and authoring, managing, has a major impact on your customer experience. It's a significant part of your web presence overall, and it's really targeted towards the most qualified audiences. So we talk about the impact on your customer experience. So your product content is really the only asset, the only content asset in your company that really impacts on every single stage of your customer journey. So whether customers or prospects discovering about your product, searching and researching about that, comparing to competitors, deciding to use it, going through with a purchase, and then eventually going ahead and using your product and getting, using your product in order to better use the product, getting help, personalization, and then eventually evangelizing and creating partnerships with you as they become your loyal customers. So your technical content really helps your customers right from the beginning of that journey all the way, through the customer success aspect of the relationship. Your content is also a very significant part of the web presence. So if you were to count how much content you have compared to other content in your organization, I would venture to say the volume will, very often dwarfs all other public and customer-facing content. So many of our customers, and I know some of our customers are on the call today, and some of our prospects, and many of you that are working for customers or companies that are similar to some of our customers. But generally, the companies that we work with sometimes have tens of hundreds of thousands of pages. We're working with a company now that have 850,000 topics of content in their documentation portal. It's enormous. That volume easily dwarfs all their public and customer-facing content. And not only that, but it's the content that you're writing is long tail. It's optimized for organic search. So, for example, if we talk about the web traffic and the number of interactions that happens vis-a-vis your content as opposed to marketing content, is generally relatively high. So, for example, ServiceNow is one of our customers also. They last we checked on the public-facing sites that talk about these types of statistics. So the documentation or the technical content made up about 76% of the web traffic. Many of our customers tell us the same thing, that the interactions with their technical content post-sale is just much, dwarfs the rest of the content. The third thing, the reason why your content is so important is that you're really targeting the most qualified audience. So 88% of people are purchasing products are using technical product information to make their purchasing decisions. And then 50% of leads are generated by documentation online. So for those of you who have some or all of your documentation content public, that content has a huge potential benefit to generating leads through search juice and using that content or making that content available for people to make educated decisions about your products. Okay, so that kind of goes into our next question about, our content is, we have lots and lots of this content, but who needs personalization? Like, why are we on this call? So our friends at CIDM, who are hosting this this presentation, they found that the top 3 most common customer demands regarding content delivery are, the content should be more searchable, content should be customized or personalized, and asking for videos. Okay, so we're going to be focusing on today on the customized or the personalized content, but just to show that the personalization aspect of getting to this content and the experience around this content is just is tremendous. Okay, so that's really the overall business case of why we're here today. Now, the world is personalized, right? We go home, outside of our jobs, we're shopping, we're searching, we're doing social media, we're going traveling, we're doing financial planning. Our whole world outside these days are personalized. Okay, the question is, why aren't we? So our customers, they're using our products, and during their regular lives, they're going ahead and having a very personalized experience. But then they come to work, and then they try to find our content, and it's in the best case, sometimes it takes many clicks and a lot of time to find the content that we know is there. And people are scratching their head and saying, like, why can't I get the same experience at work that I'm getting at home? And that's regarding our customers, is regarding our prospects. It's also regarding us. We're in our organization, we're trying to do our jobs. People are sitting next to you are trying to do their jobs, and very often they're using your content that you guys are creating. And we need to make sure our content is as accessible and personalized as possible, because that's really what people's expectations are, and that's really what we should be giving them. So the impact of personalization, we throw some numbers again out there. So 78% of customers believe that organizations that provide custom content are interested in building that good relationship with them. Okay, it's not just signing off and saying sayonara, I don't need to talk to you again. We all understand the importance of customer success, of customer satisfaction scores, and this idea of making an effort, a visible effort, to create customized or personalized content goes a long way with consumers to understand that we're going the extra mile in order to build a relationship with them, that we care to make sure that they're getting what they need. So when we talk about our content, you guys are rating that content, and the question really becomes, like, what does it mean to personalize the content? What's the vehicle for personalizing our content and getting that content out there? So we used to talk about, previous years, we used to talk about single sourcing, we used to talk about dynamic publishing. But now we're talking about digital experience. And if you talk to your marketing folks, down the hallway or up to a couple of floors or whatever, those guys who are doing digital marketing, they talk about digital experience. Okay, they used to talk about web content management. Now they're all talking about digital experience. How do I get the best digital experience for our prospects and customers for our content? Okay, and they're usually talking about marketing content, right, or support content. For us in the technical documentation, technical communications, we're also moving into the idea of digital experience. We want to make sure that the experience around our content, the digital experience through our website, through our community, through our support portal, through our Slack, all the different ways that we're communicating with our customers, making sure the overall digital experience with our customers is maximized or optimized. And that really talks about personalizing that digital experience. So we talk about the 3 pillars of digital experience. We talk about answering, engaging, and monetization. So number 1, answering is finding answers quickly. People are coming to their site not because they want to read your documentation from start to finish, and not because they have some time to burn or because they need to fall asleep. They're coming to your site because they have some kind of answer and they want the answer as quick. They have some question and they want the answer as quickly as possible. They have something to do and they want the answer. That's why I go to our documentation site, and I'm sure that's why you go to your own documentation site as well. So people need to find answers quickly. They need it to be where the answers need to be where they need it, whether they're in your documentation portal or your support portal or community, and it needs to be relevant and personalized. That's the first pillar of digital experience. The second pillar is engagement. So we want to promote user interactions with recommendations around our content. That's the first part of engagement. We want to engage with our customers through feedback, through comments, understanding their satisfaction level, and we want to know our audience. We want to know what they're looking for, what they're looking at, what they're having problems with, what they're happy with. Okay, and all these the interactions with our content helps us to engage with them It also helps to understand more about the ecosystem around our products and content. That really leads into the monetization aspect of being able to get those actionable insights around the interactions with our content. Like I mentioned before, the vast majority, and in our experience, and our customers tell us this, the vast majority of interactions with our company, with your company, is through finding answers through your technical content. Okay, we want that experience to be positive, and the positive experience equals higher customer satisfaction, equals NPS. You know, those are the acronyms that people seem to be focusing around these days. And that helps us to optimize the product and support, and generally turning all that content that you guys are creating into revenue. Okay, so the impact of search, okay, from an answers point of view, is generally people don't want to spend time searching. So on average, users make no more than 2 searches before they leave the site. Okay, so from a personalization point of view, we're not able to make our searches better. And remember, like I said, we have sometimes we have hundreds of thousands of pages on our site, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, right? If they're not going to be able to find that content as easily as possible, they're going to leave. Okay, and when they don't have to search, it pays off. So when users get a good search results, then their engagement level doubles, right? They do a search, they find the content, they get some recommendations, they move on. Engagement, the impact of recommendations is that we see, this is actually from Salesforce themselves. They say that to double the return users, meaning that users who click on recommendations or recommended content are 2 times more likely to return to our site compared to users who didn't click on a recommendation. So you might say, like, what do I care? I'm not a marketing site. Why do I care whether people are coming to my site or not? Well, we want people coming to our site because we want people to know that our site is the personalized and most updated single source of truth about how to get information about the product. Okay. Not only that, our digital marketing people will tell us that the more positive, personalized interactions we have on our site leads to upsells and leads to positive customer satisfaction. So getting people onto our site in the positive interaction, in a positive experience, helps to, in a very clear way, to increase our upsells, increase our monetization. Users who click on recommendations are able to spend more time on the site. So instead of just a couple minutes on the site, they'll spend more time on our site, again, learning more about our products, learning more about our feature set, and best practices about how to use our product. That's really, that's all positive. From a monetization point of view, so bad search equals wasted time, wasted money. Time equals money. So 36% of a typical knowledge worker's day is spent looking for information and consolidating that information across a variety of systems. I bet I don't need to explain that to you even more. I know, you know, I spend time finding information. I'm sure you guys do also. 90% of the users' time is spent on just trying to find the right information. Okay, while only 10% is focused on analyzing the information they found. So people are spending a lot of time in search, and it's just it needs to stop. Now let's dive into, you know, the personalization aspect. What does it mean to personalize our content? So there's really 4 R's. The 4 R's of personalization is to recognize our user's profile. That means either their expressed or explicit interests or their shared interests, their company affiliation, you know, where they're coming in from, and more. So number 1 is recognizing who our user is. The second thing is remembering our user's history, remembering the browsing behavior, remembering their implicit interests. Okay, remembering the actions that they're taking. People, the activity around your site, around your documentation portal, allows us to understand what they're really interested in. Okay, we want to remember and we want to capture that. The third R is recommend. We want to be able to recommend contextually relevant content based on user actions, preferences, and interests. Okay, so we want to focus on recommendations, whether that be automated related links, whether that be, you know, recommending KB articles or knowledge-based articles or community posts that might be relevant based on what I'm looking at on the site at this point. So these are all recommendations. The fourth R is relevance. We want to personalize the search experience and ensure that each customer is really getting the content that's most relevant to them. Okay, and that really means kind of taking all these other R's, the recognizing who they are, and remembering those the interactions, the behaviors, okay, using the recommendations and the click-throughs and recommendations, helping to continually, through AI, through other algorithms, being able to continually improve the relevance of the content we're putting in front of our customers. So those are the 4 R's of personalization. So how do we actualize the personalization? Let's talk about it on a high level. Then we're going to go deeper into some examples. Okay, the first thing, someone comes to your site and they generally have a role, a goal, and a context. Okay, they have a role. In this example, I'm a network engineer. That's my role in my organization or at work, at least. So how do I upgrade? That's my task. That's my goal. And my context is a particular device, a particular product, a particular environment. So how do I upgrade my particular device in this certain platform? I'm going to connect it to another device. So this is really, again, my role, my goal, and my context. If you want to talk about from a content strategy point of view or a taxonomy point of view, understanding user scenarios, typical user scenarios, typical reasons why people are finding our content or looking for content, right? Those typical user scenarios, based on personas and our understanding of typical customers who are coming and prospects who are coming to our site, our user base, that's really what is going to guide the creation of taxonomy, guide the creation of our content strategy. Okay, we're going to talk a little about that today, but over other webinars and definitely at the conference, the CIDM conference in April, you'll be seeing a lot of presentations and discussions exactly around this. How do I create taxonomy? How do I create a good content strategy in governments? And a lot of it's based on this basic role, goal, and context. Who's coming to our site? What's their goal? And what are they trying to do? Okay, so we talk about recognizing and remembering. So we're talking about, number one, using things we know about them if they're coming in. So if they're coming in from the public, maybe we know their prior behaviors or their geolocation. If they're coming in and they're logging in, maybe we know they're profiled through single sign-on. Often our CRM systems or our ERP systems are set up to be able to understand who our users are, who our customers are, what they've purchased, okay, what versions they've purchased. All this information allows us to recognize who is coming to us for information and to remember what they looked at last time and what is likely to be relevant to them in future visits. Okay, again, so through their profile, single sign-on, through explicit preferences, and we're going to show you some examples of that, of asking or identifying or allowing our users to explicitly identify what they're interested in. Okay, now once someone comes in and they do a search, we're looking for content, so then we can use the different technologies, whether it be filtering technologies, clustering technologies, entity extraction. So more and more we're talking about using intelligent assistants or chatbots, voice recognition, things like this. And in that world, we talk about entity extraction. We talk about trying to analyze the conversation and extract entities or information about, or parameters that are essential parts of that conversation, and using that to provide answers. Okay, and we're able to use AI such as natural language processing, natural language understanding, and the top there is really where we come in, the semantic classification, and that's where our part is understanding the typical roles, typical use cases, and the typical entities, what people are looking for, and using that to build our taxonomy, a semantic taxonomy, be doing semantic tagging and classifying our content. Now, all that leads to the end result, which should be relevance in the information we're giving and recommendations. So that boils down into several different bullet points here. Number one, from entitlements and preferences point of view, entitlements generally means what are people allowed to see. Okay, so based on who they are, what are we going to allow them to see? If I'm a prospect, I may see some content. If I'm a customer, I may see more content. If I'm a partner, I may see even more content. And if I'm an internal service or support person, I might see even more content. Because those are called entitlements. So based on what we know about them, entitlement is a type of personalization. Preferences is saying, wait a minute, I'm allowed to see content, but there's so much of it out there. I just I just have certain preferences that will allow me to see the content more easily when I'm actually what's useful for me. So that's what's called preferences. So entitlements is what I'm allowed to see. Preferences is, well, I'm allowed to see it, but what am I most interested in? The search behavior and boosting can be guided by the relevance. Okay, so based on our preferences, that helps to actively guide or to inform the search behavior and the boosting of search results. The technology now is allowing us to do that. The content types. What type of content am I useful? Am I interested in? Am I interested in tech notes? Am I interested in release notes? Am I interested in brochures of my salesperson? Am I interested in procedures or installation or maintenance? So what kind of content types am I useful for me in my particular role? That's called relevance and recommendations. Personal aggregation of content. Okay, very often there's a lot of content out on your site. I really use very little of it on an ongoing basis. So I'm going to quote you something. I'm not sure if it's true, but I heard that Einstein had said that it's a shame to remember anything that you can look up, right? So people are coming to your site, they're looking up information on an ongoing basis. So why do we keep making them do it over and over again? Anything that's useful for them lets them aggregate it into their personal, whether we call it bookmarks or my personal document, by allowing people to personalize their aggregation of content, not just a couple of bookmarks and links, but being able to really aggregate useful information and share that with their colleagues and their other prospects, etc. Announcements, being able to push relevant announcements to our user base. For example, we know that certain customers are using a particular version of the product. We happen to know there's an issue out there. Before they have to pick up the phone and call and get frustrated, let's actively tell them there's an issue, and here's a link to a knowledge-based article to get around that. Okay, or there's a new release coming out. Our product managers and our developers have spent a lot of time and effort to create the newest widgets, the newest features in your company. We need to tell them, our customers, about that. From a product management point of view, people will tell you that one of the biggest reasons why people or customers churn or do not re-engage or re-buy your product is because they just simply don't know what's there. They don't know what exists already. So announcing to people what's new in our organization, what's new in our products, but proactively pushing them information that they care about. If I have 100 products and have different versions of my company, so I don't need to push every single announcement to people. I can only push the announcements that are relevant to particular customers. And other types of call to action, surveys, knowledge contribution, things like that. All that ties into the relevance and recommendations. So we have recognize and remember, understanding who the person is basically through explicit preferences and implicit preferences, through prior behavior, etc. And then we have the output, which is providing relevant content and suggesting recommended content. So let's go through a couple of case studies. Here's one of our customers who spent a lot of effort creating content strategy to understand who their typical users are who are coming to who are using their products. Okay, and then also what are the common use cases of what people are looking for? Are they getting started? Are they developing? Okay, and there's a lot of I kind of cut this screen off, but there's a lot of other tiles there that represent typical use cases that people are looking for from the get-go. Okay, so right on the home page, people can say, okay, I want to learn, I'm just doing onboarding, I want to learn by role. Okay, or I have this particular type of information I'm looking for at this particular moment. Let me go and do that. So we talk about, this page is an example of a case study of how we're recognizing who the role of the person is. In this case, we're actively asking the user to say, okay, learn by role, for example. And based on what they've clicked, we're able to go ahead and remember their choice, okay, and then recommend relevant content to them going forward. Okay, so here's where we are able to identify common profiles and use cases. The next step, when the particular user clicks on one of the choices for the profiles, then first of all, we're able to remember now what the profile is. Okay, and that again can help us guide later searches and navigation and recommendations. So here we have a landing page, which has, based on who they are, allows them to get role-based navigation. This is information that that is most useful to you. Okay. Now, right here, we're not using any, there's no real fancy technology. This is content strategy. This is, understanding our content, understanding our users, understanding personas, things we've heard about and things we've been learning about, and creating a navigation structure and a visually pleasing user experience that allows people to go ahead and find the content that they're looking for. Okay. So we have first recognizing and remembering, and we have this role-based navigation. The next step is having personalized learning. So this is another example of a user interface that allows us to quickly surface up relevant content that allows our customers to do very personalized learning based on their role. Okay, so we may have topics spread out over one or more guides or help files, or what do you want to call it, or collections, let's say collections of content. It could be a video, it could be a procedure, it could be a tutorial, it could be a lot of different things, but they're spread out all over. And depending on, who the person is, we might want to aggregate particular piece of content for this particular role, okay, and show it in a interface that allows them to visualize a flow of when they need to know in order to get onboarded, or to go through a particular flow in order to get to a particular goal. As many of you know, probably more than me, a lot of procedures take more than one step or more than one task. Okay, very often people are doing multi-tasks, multi-level tasks in order to get to an end goal. It may take, be a very short process, and maybe a longer process, but very often we're looking for user experience or user flows in order to visualize exactly how I'm going through a process. So based on our understanding of who the person is, we're able to go ahead and provide personalized learning and surface up the most relevant content. Okay. So there's an example of where we're able to recognize, remember, recommend, and then surface up relevant content. Now, behind the scenes, what's happening here is, without showing a screenshot, is that behind the scenes, that the user profile is being remembered, and then later on, we're able to use that from a technology point of view to automatically set preferences, so that which will automatically do search weighting in order to surface up the most relevant content based on the navigation this person has done, and let us know about who they are. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go forward for the next case study. Here's a case study of a company called ServiceNow. They're also have been investing a lot in personalizing. In their case, they've been investing in more and more in taxonomy and content strategy, but also in technology. So here we have an example of a customer coming in, and we're able to provide them a interface for them to identify their interests. Okay. Now, we spoke about 3 different ways of identifying interest. One might be through a single sign-on. One might be through a single sign-on plus under a query to a CRM system, a customer relationship management system, or an ERP system to say, okay, well, this customer just logged in. This customer belongs to company X. Company X purchased X, these A, B, and C products from me in different versions. So based on that, I am able to provide either entitlements, meaning I'm only showing content that they've actually purchased, or I'm able to set preferences and saying, well, I'm not going to hide content from them, but I'm going to use what I know about them in order to set preferences. And then those preferences are able to allow me to surface up the more relevant content. So in this case, we're able to recognize and remember explicit search preferences. So here what you see on the screen is a snapshot of a taxonomy where I have a list of products and I have a list of versions. Okay, in this case, the versions are listed not by numbers, by cities. So I've gone and I've logged in. By the way, this site is public. You can go in to ServiceNow.site, docs.servicenow.com. You can ask for a login. You can get a login. You can actually play with this. And you can see how by setting your profile to particular versions of products, it will actively go ahead and set the search weighting. Okay. So as I move to the site, I see here that it's remembering my preferences. Okay. It's remembering my preferences as far as the navigation, as far as the the search filtering, and behind the scenes, the auto suggest and all the other search functionality is automatically being pre-filtered and pre-weighted based on the preferences that I set in the previous screen. So I'm able to go and say, you know what, these are the products I'm using, this is the version I'm using, and then as we get more sophisticated, then we can, I'm going to go back to the previous slide for a second, then we can add more areas to this taxonomy. So right now we have versions of products, but we could definitely be adding things like role, like Progress is doing, and saying Progress software, and it's okay, I have role is administrator, et cetera, and I can go ahead and set my role, and that would also help to inform and weight the search preferences. Okay. Now getting back to a higher level content strategy or taxonomy, a lot of our customers have done taxonomy workshops. For example, we have customers who have worked with the Comtech to do taxonomy workshops, and one of the things that Comtech and others will do as a taxonomy workshop is try to understand like what are the most relevant parameters that can help somebody define the most relevant content for me. Okay, so I might have the urge to tag my content all kinds of ways, but it could be that those tagging does not help me or does not help my customers to narrow down or to disambiguate from all the different types of content I have on my site. It doesn't help them to get to the most relevant content any easier. Okay. The trick and the art and really the work behind creating a good taxonomy is not to create hundreds or thousands of facets. The trick and the elegance of it is to really narrow down to find those 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 types of parameters, each of which may have 5, 6, 10, 15 facets at the most, which really allows a huge amount of flexibility to narrow down to the most relevant content through dynamic links, through automated links, through search facets, through guided navigation, through preferences like we spoke about before, which allows us to get a lot of power and personalization without burdening our authors by tagging lots of content using lots of different tags, and without burdening our customers by expecting them to start clicking on a bunch of faceted search checkboxes. Okay, so this is an example. What you see on the screen here is how taxonomy and content strategy can help us to create the facets and the structure that allows us to get to that personalized search weighting without pulling our hair out with a lot of tagging overall, overarching or over the ends tagging and confusing user experience. Here's an example again from how we're able to use recommendations or use what we know about our users, recognizing and remembering about them to recommended content. So here we have an example of content coming from a support site or from a community site. So this might be content being created in other areas of my web presence. Maybe we don't own that content as technical communicators, but we definitely have access to that content. We're able to bring that into our doc portal. Okay. Now this can be also flipped. Many companies these days are using CRM systems like Salesforce or ITSM systems like ServiceNow as the front end interface or the platform from which all customers are expected to go. So for example, I might be using Salesforce Community or ServiceNow Community, and my support people have set up a nicely branded customer portal, which is using that ServiceNow service or Salesforce or whatever you're using that or in partner for partners relationship, using those, using that interface as the portal. So those interfaces are generally, if you're talking about Salesforce, for example, those interfaces are often, built to optimize search or access to KB articles. What we're able to do now is to use widgets and APIs, like a documentation API really, to get that content accessible inside of a community portal or inside of a support portal. So it's really like pushing our content as recommended content into the community, into the support portal. Okay. Now, I'm going to take a couple steps about that. This is really one of the powerful, I talked earlier about the idea of digital experience. So we're not really talking about dynamic publishing anymore. We're not talking about, let's just bolt a good search engine into our HTML help files or web help files. We're talking about creating a digital experience that really makes our content accessible to whatever platform our organization has decided will be the front-end platform for customer use, for customer portal. Okay? And that's really where we're able to provide the intelligent recommendations. Another example of this case study, we're talking about being able to have content subscriptions, so allowing a personalization for using remembering about the customer or the user and the relevance to be able to create subscriptions and notifications. So a customer might say, here's a bunch of topics or information that are very relevant to me. Maybe I'm a support person, maybe I'm a field service agent, or maybe I'm a customer who does something over and over again. I want to know when this content is updated. And I might want to know, for example, if the product or the product version that is linked to this particular content that I subscribe to, if there are significant announcements that are happening, I want to know about that. Okay, so if I'm a big company, I have hundreds of products. I'm a Dell, or I'm a ServiceNow, or maybe your company's also, you have lots of products, lots of versions. You don't want to push notifications to everybody. Based on subscriptions or what people have let us know that they're interested in, we're able to garner from that information about what they're really interested in, and then be able to push the most relevant subscriptions, announcements, campaigns to them. Okay. So we did a couple of case studies about how we're able to use guided navigation, okay, through content strategy based on roles. And then we're able to do a second case study to show how we're able to use technology and a modern digital experience platform to use those preferences and to use explicit information about that we know about people, and implicit information we know about people logging in, to create a more technological search experience, subscription experience, dynamic links, etc., and recommendations. So at this point, I'm going to stop and see if we have any questions.
Not at this time. Folks, remember the question dialog box is in your go to webinar control panel.
So as we're waiting for some questions, so I mentioned several times about how taxonomy and content strategy really plays into this personalization. It really helps to, is really the kind of the content foundation or the overlay that helps to really provide these advanced experiences. And that's something that you'll be able to learn much more at the conference coming up, webinars, etc., something that we're very passionate about, but something that's becoming more and more important in our field. Being able to understand, how to go, the proper methodology to create a taxonomy, to not waste time creating taxonomies that are not useful. Okay, we talk about content strategy. How do we partner with other organizations, other groups in our organization, whether it be the support organization, whether it be our marketing organization? Now, more and more, we're seeing that technical documentation portals or digital experiences around technical documentation is being more and more financed and sponsored by digital marketing organizations, because they just understand, like we said before, the vast amount of value that your content is bringing to the organization.
Hey, Joe, can you go back to your 4 pillars, the 4 R's slide where you have those? And then just wanted to see, if you're going to start small, is there one of these pillars you think is the most effective or most successful, most important? Where would you get started on those?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, like we said before, some of this is technology, some of this is thought. And where I think that the first place to start is really with recognizing and really trying to understand, recognize who's really coming to our site. So different ways of doing that. There's, one way that I like particularly like is what we call the ad lib methodology towards recognizing our user base, user profiles. So for example, I am a X and I want to do Y on product Z or something like that, kind of what we talked about, role, goal, and context. And by going and interviewing people, interviewing some customers, interviewing some of our support people, customer success people, sales people, not hundreds of people, not even tens of people, but just interviewing a few people and asking questions like, what do you typically go to when you come to our site? What are you typically looking for? what's your goal, and what are you trying to, what are you looking for, and what would you expect to find? And that's really helps to start to recognize the profiles and really understand the interests that people have and what they're really looking for. And we talked about, you guys talk at Contact talk a lot about minimalism, which is not creating content that's useful and not creating content that's not useful. And I would think to recognize is really the first part, because that's what we have control over.
Yep, and we also talk about creating personas as part of that, and really going through that exercise and formalizing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all part of it. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So have you ever integrated with an AD that holds lots of information that decides what you get to see? No manual selection required, such as roles, products, license, versioning, language, etc.
So, yeah. So AD meaning like I assume that means like Active Directory or something like that, right?
That's what I'm guessing. I was kind of a little baffled.
Yes, so definitely.
Yep, Active Directory.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So we that is very, very typical. So we personally, our company specifically has we have a lot of our customers who are using AD or Active Directory for user management. And what we're able to do is extract metadata from the token. So generally what happens is someone logs in, a single sign-on token is passed into our system, for example, into the portal. And based on the metadata, we're able to map particular profiles, or what we call content role groups, in order to either automatically set entitlements or automatically set preferences based on what we know about that person. Now, many organizations use Active Directory internally for internal users. Okay, so like we mentioned before, there's a lot of searching going on your site. It's happening by people in your organization, right? So AD or Active Directory is very often used for internal internal usage, and then many other companies use a second IDP or a secondary identity provider for customers. Either that could be Salesforce, it could be Okta, it could be a lot of different other examples. So yeah, we definitely have a lot of integrations with AD and and as well as other types of IDPs or identity providers in order to, slurp out metadata about the user, automatically map that to one or more profiles, and through that have a very fine level of control about what people are able to see and what people are most relevant to see.
Okay. The person that asked the question just chimed in. Yes, they are separate for us, customers versus staff. Is there a limited number of metadata tags?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the question is this a technology question or is this a user experience question? So from a technology point of view, no, there's never a limitation. There's usually not a limitation in the number of metadata tags. From the standpoint of, a lot of us who have ADD and a lot of us who don't want to be having our writers to be tagging, ad nauseum, and for a lot of us who don't want a user experience that is clouded with a bunch of checkboxes. So yeah, there should be a limited number of metadata tags. And what we've seen is that with the proper methodology of understanding what a taxonomy should be, then we impose our own limits on the number of metadata tags by just finding what's really the most relevant. So.
Yeah, I think you threw out some numbers there earlier that you should only have. Right.
So so often we'll have some taxonomy will often be made up of, I would say, like three, in my experience anyway, about three types of parameters, I would say. One parameter or one type of facet grouping, let's say in taxonomy, is my list of products, products and versions, and that often can be very, very long, and you can't really limit that. You can't say, okay, well, I have 100 products or I have 20 products, and each of them has 3 versions, and I'm gonna do a random picking and cut them down. You can't do that. Those need to be in your taxonomy. The second, or I'm going to skip to the third. The third part of the taxonomy is often based on, like kind of hard coding profile or permissions. Like this content, I'm going to tag this content to be accessible only for internal people or only for partners, right? Okay, so that's one type of group. So it might come like a limited access, using taxonomy for limiting content in a very hard-coded way. The second out of the three is really where the smarts go into creating a taxonomy that will really deliver on that personalized experience. And that is why I mentioned before, I mean, 4, 5, 6, 7 types of parameters. It could be like, I don't know, content type, role, user role, region, it could be operating system, it could be something like UI type, it could be deployment mechanism, whatever your product is, kind of narrowing down those parameters that helps you to disambiguate content. So if I'm doing a search, for example, or I'm drilling down to content, if I have several pieces of content that would reasonably come up the same in a search, how do I disambiguate between them in a way that maps with typical scenarios of how people are looking for things? Okay. I hope that's kind of clear, but and those are 5, 6, 7 parameters. They generally only have a handful of facet values. How many content types do you have? Maintenance. I don't know, maintenance, administration, whatever it's going to be, or video, tutorial, things like this. How many roles do you typically have? Most organizations maybe have a handful of roles, maybe 10. Okay, but if you go through each one of these, you'll see that there's a relatively small number of facets. We see often that from a tagging point of view, this can actually be automated. A lot of people are asking, well, how do I automate my tags? How do I automatically inherit tagging based on certain rules? Okay, a lot of this can be automated, and it's really narrowing down to this very manageable number of tags. A lot of our customers these days are saying, listen, if someone's coming onto a page, someone does a search, or they navigate down to a particular topic, okay, what is the most relevant, if I'm in that situation, what would be the most relevant content for me to see at that particular moment? Okay, now based on that, what would I expect to come up, and how would I tag the content? How would I create like a business rule that would express a way that would, that would make this particular content come up? Now, it sounds difficult. It sounds very difficult, but when you really start boiling it down to typical, use cases that a lot of us have access to either ourselves or to our customers or to support people, we can really boil down these rules to something relatively straightforward and relatively elegant, okay? And you can get a huge amount of benefit from that. What Zoomin allows you to do, and I'm sure we're not the only vendor to do this, but what Zoomin allows you to do is do metadata mapping. So typically in most organizations, you'll have a support group that has their own taxonomy for support, or a product marketing group that has their own taxonomy. And you might have your own taxonomy that's exactly the same. So what we allow you to do is do metadata mapping. So it says, what, if someone landed on the topic, or I've identified this person as a certain role, okay, I want to automatically map that taxonomy or the tag to other taxonomies and other systems, so that allows me to reach across other systems and either asynchronously or through federated search, be able to bring in the most related or most recommended content, whether it be a KB article, whether it be a learning module in an LMS system. We're getting more and more customers are doing that, and embedding, getting access to training, online training, e-learning. Basically, reach across different silos of information and make that readily available on the page.
So are there some taxonomy tools out there that you recommend?
So I probably refer that back to you. So you guys do a lot of, you guys do much more taxonomy, consulting than we do.
Yeah.
But there are tools out there, and it's kind of based on based on requirements like anything else. What typically goes into choosing a tool these days is the level of association you need to make, which ontologies, for example, and the level of governance you want. So if you have a large organization, or you want to be able to spread the taxonomy management across many people or many groups, then very often the differentiation between these tools is the ability to restrict or to enlist some kind of a governance policy. That's number one. The second way that these generally differentiate is the ability to do auto tagging. Based on taxonomy, or use machine learning in order to auto tag. So that's really the two, in my experience, the ones that are the two main differentiating factors.
Right. Yeah, and we're actively looking for some of those tool vendors to come to CMS. So we're seeking them out. Hopefully they'll be there this year. If not, we'll try to get them next year. But that seems to be a very hot topic right now, and so we'd like to get them involved a little bit more. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Great topic in general here. Any more questions for Joe at this time? Any parting thoughts?
Right. So, we're very much happy to hear from your hear any kind of feedback you guys have. Feel free to be in touch with me, personally, or through the CIDM people. Be happy to get your feedback. If you have any thoughts about how to do this better, if you have any kind of criticism or any kind of suggestions for how of anything that I said that you thought could be presented better or anything, I'd be happy to hear that. But really, this is this is as an industry, as a set of practitioners, we're all really this is all kind of relatively new to all of us, and we're all learning about best practices from a content strategy point of view, from a technology point of view. We very much look forward to hearing from you.
I think this is great. I love the 4 pillars and how it ties into minimalism writing and all sorts of things. There's a good overlap there. I think it's great. So thanks, everybody. Thank you very much, Joe. And like we said, we'll get this recording out to you probably sometime next week, and we'll include Joe's email address in that email when we do the link for the recording. So we hope a lot of you can join Joe and I at the Content Management Strategies in Durham. In the meantime, happy writing, everybody. Thanks.